And one of the questions which comes here is, will we start seeing more of nationalism, and which means less offshore work, more work needs to be done in my own country, my own place, that kind of a thing? Will there be a challenge to offshore work?
Yeah. No, I think the slowdown of globalization had begun even before COVID-19. I think America for Americans is a slogan that Trump has talked about openly. And having said that, I think globalization has occurred and we are dependent. And I think at this point in time, we are not going to see a drastic shift in the policies of countries. I think India has done a phenomenally good job in building relationship in the last 4 years with America and many other countries. But their own economy has to come back for demand to go up. I think the shift into AI and other machine learning and IoT, all those will require skill set, and those are not readily available in America. So I think we will continue to see a demand surge for our people in those sectors, in certain platforms. Maintenance of old system, legacy systems are a reality. So I think my own answer would be, yeah, there is going to be a shift, but if that shift occurs, other countries also will lose out, because India is really a domestic consumption. Our consumption can be very big, and our consumption needs people to come in and provide certain supplies, not just the money from financial institutions and investors, FDIs and FIIs, but I really think that many companies will want to come to us, and there will be reciprocal arrangements for us to do trade with them. And I also see, and I'm hoping that as the sentiments with China, which have been not so good in global scenario, Japan has openly talked about removing, funding $2 billion to move Japanese companies out of China. I don't know the sectors. I'm trying to get an understanding. And they are probably going to look at countries like India, Indonesia, and others. So I think there is going to be a set of new opportunities, both in manufacturing and chemicals and agrochemicals. The dependency the world has in agrochemical technicals is very high on China. The Indian pharmaceutical companies are also one of the leaders in all the generic drugs today. Almost, you can boldly say, 1/3 of the world generic drugs, are probably more, is produced in India. So I think we will get more opportunities like those. Is it a zero-sum game? I think the global demand is coming down. So yeah, it is in a way a zero-sum game. If China wins, we lose. If we win, in the commercial business terms, China will lose some. So I think there are some silver linings here, and hope is emerging that we may get it.
Great. And I think that takes us to logically the next topic. Obviously, we are in times, difficult times, and gloom and doom and all that. But every time there is a reset which happens in the world, we've seen that there are great opportunities that come up as well. So there are a number of questions around this. To start with, somebody has asked, is this a good time to do a startup? And I'm going to ask more questions after this. But the question is this a good time? Is it the right time to do startup?
I think if you have identified a need or a consumer behavior shift, this is the best time to start, because talent pool availability will be much higher. And this is the best time to answer in a very brief manner. It's a very good time to do startups.
In fact, we have Pragya, who's a PhD in microbiology with 12 years of experience. And she said, is this a good time to do startups in healthcare? And there are a lot of questions around, is healthcare going to boom? Is healthcare the right place? High-tech healthcare, is it the right time to do business? And so on and so forth. So maybe if you can spend a few minutes in terms of what exactly healthcare offers in terms of startup opportunities. And of course, I mean, it's not everything is not rosy. So what caution one needs to do, or what should somebody look for if somebody has a prior experience in that area?
Just to give you a little bit of history, 10 years back when I started Medall, the general feeling in the industry was, what is an IIT and management guy doing in the healthcare business? And healthcare is not even an industry. It is the right of the doctors to do it. No offense meant, this was the general consensus. And then, of course, we had the giants like Apollo. Then came many other hospital chains. Some of them have done phenomenally well. And as recently as even a couple of years back, people didn't know what diagnostics was, right? And even some of the really powerful government officials didn't understand the role of diagnostic companies, independent diagnostic chains. Today, they have boomed, and it is almost a 50,000-60,000 crore market, and it is highly fragmented. And technology shift has happened in all the places, from patient monitoring in ICUs to the way we are managing patients in hospitals, the way diagnostics is done, way pharmaceutical medicines are prescribed. All of that is seen, and this might be a very powerful opportunity like Y2K was for the IT industry. I think healthcare has come into the minds of 1.3 billion people in India. People, whether you want to believe it or not, are thinking, hey, what should I do in testing, etc. Right? Testing is a word that is used today in the media constantly. It is getting into the people. Now, if you are a microbiologist and if you are, Prajna, ambitious entrepreneur, I really think that there are significant opportunities there. I think technology shift, along with, I sit on the Research Park Advisory Board and the Healthcare Technology Incubation Board in IIT Madras. Number of startups that have come up is amazing, particularly in healthcare. Some of them are coming up with new markers to measure, like heart rate variability. How can we link that with something else? How can we get a digital read on even hematology stuff that is there? I don't know specifics in the microbiology what you are planning to do, but I would boldly say that understand the business. If you have understood the opportunities that are there, and if you can develop a product that can cut costs significantly or can test better, it doesn't have to be cost always, but opportunities. I think there is phenomenal opportunity available in India. India has a Make in India program. There are lots of funding given to young entrepreneurs to encourage them to start, particularly in Andhra, in Vizag, there is an Andhra Medical Technology Zone, and AMTZ. I think that is another place where there is a booming set of activity happening. So I would encourage you to look at your own states, where all are the medical technology part, what kind of support you can get, and what is your idea.
Also, thank you. And a follow-up on that is, what will change in the hospitals and the way they are run? In fact, we have somebody called Sarumati asking a question, and I'm trying to understand that still. I'm assuming Sarumati is she. Okay, and she says that due to a lot of capping of prices in Ayushman Bharat and NPPA and all that, the hospitals are to manage the costing very, very well. And we have capabilities as a consulting to help that. But they're all stuck because hospitals don't want to share patient data, confidentiality, and there's so much of complexities in terms of getting patient data in India. Do you believe that will change? And there are also other questions in terms of what will change in hospitals, how will hospitals take technology, and so on and so forth, their opportunities. So there are multiple questions around what will specifically happen in hospitals.
Now, I will draw a parallel to some of my experience living in America and then come to answer specifics on hospital. Before the world that we are living in, where there is very little paper, there was Kodak that was doing films, there were prints, there was Minolta, there was so many of these companies that were completely running multi-billion dollar businesses, and IBM had virtual monopoly in the industry. There was a company called Digital Equipment Corporation, which we don't know anymore, and many of these companies didn't do the market shift. And when the consumer shift happens and the technology is real and viable and user-friendly, people will adopt. And that's where the opportunity lies for each and every one of us. And I'm seeing significant customer-centric approaches coming in healthcare. Healthcare was like IBM. It was mystical. A computer was mystical in those days. Today, everybody has a computer in their hand, right? A lot more powerful than some of the mainframes in many homes today. So I think healthcare will become, as the consumer awareness of the use of these technologies happen, healthcare will also shift significantly to wellness. You know, many of our hospitals are health cure. They are not health care. They can cure. And some doctors get offended when I say they're all trained to look at patterns to treat people when they have a disease, to find a disease and cure a disease. I'm not saying you don't need it, but if you all follow the work of a great guy by name Vinod Khosla, who was one of the founders of Sun Microsystem, he has openly come out and said that there will not be a need for general physician in 10 years from now. Most of the things can be done. We can get artificial intelligence to make the decision that a doctor makes. Now, maybe it is far-stretched. I'm not saying it is not possible, because I never thought, when I listened to people like Bill Gates and all talk about a phone having a video in mid-80s, late 80s or early 90s, that it will happen. It is happening. So many things like that are shifting. And even in pharma industry, from antibiotics, people will move to biomes and bioceuticals. That's happening in a big way. Another 10 years, we will see significant shifts in those. So when I look at it, yeah, healthcare is at the cusp to come back to hospitals. I don't think that hospitals will remain just as curing. I think they will also increase their presence in wellness area. They will become a lot more proactive in engaging with customers and owning the customers for life. I think that's going to happen. And, you know, typically the comfort level that parents have with certain doctors is now going to be shifted to certain hospitals, provided they are giving them the value and respecting and trusting them. If that happens, I think healthcare industry will continue to boom. At a macro level, I can say we are spending $125 billion in India in healthcare, which is roughly 4% of our GDP. And rest of the world, like America, spends 18% of their $18 trillion GDP, roughly $3 trillion a year is in healthcare. Of course, that includes pharmaceutical research and everything else. And I think you will see that cost in India, you specifically asked. I really think that we are already about 1/5 of the cost on purchase power parity adjusted in many of our things. Right now, the government is looking at controlling some of the cost in some of the sectors, or specifically like they did for the stent that was there. It was, an abuse of that modality in some cases, so the government has regulated. But I think overall, it is going to be a free economy, and consumers will find the right price and right value and choose the people that they want to trust their health with. Is hospitals going to go away? I don't think so. I think hospitals are required. Particularly, I've traveled to different districts, and some of the hospitals chains that are available in big cities are not available. Each district has a population of 2 million. It's not a small. India is not small. So I think there is phenomenal opportunities for entrepreneurs to go in and figure out how to work on those ideas and
audio connection. I think Raju answered your question. If you have capability and you are a PhD with multiple years of experience in microbiology, great time to be in this business. There are several organizations on IIT Madras Research Park and many other places like that who are around, who can do that. And the ecosystem is pretty good. There are a lot of interesting things happening out of here. You could also benefit from Make in India kind of initiatives. So I hope that answers your question. Let me handle a couple of questions which are coming. Maybe repeat. We have a question around what are the banks and governments doing for SME. I think we answered the question, but keep looking for that. In fact, you can look at TiE pages. We publish every support that is available from government. We will publish that. But the governments continue to announce that, and they continue to fine tune. So you should be able to go back to your own banks and all other resources to find what supports you can get. We are really hoping that very vast majority of organizations will get such benefits and not the very tiny little part of the economy. We are hoping that. What else? I think we the one of the questions that okay, we have a question from Santosh who's asking for a diagnostic device like a glucometer, what will be the best selling strategy for a startup can employ? I don't know if that's such a easy question to answer in this kind of scenario.
Yeah. I think at this point in time, the rural parts of India I would focus, where cost sensitivity is much higher, particularly on strips. It is not the meter. People don't make money on the digital equipment. They make money on the strips. And you have to make sure that you have cost leadership in manufacturing those strips. Typically, these strips retail at 20 to 25 rupees, and you can import from China and other parts for as low as 4 to 5 with some questionable quality results, but even with 6 to 7 rupees. So your target should be to manufacture it at 1 or 2 rupees and keep the price point at about 6 to 7 rupees. If you can get it to market, there is going to be marketing cost. There is going to be distribution cost. It is not just manufacturing cost that goes in. Typically, manufacturing times 2 or 3 is used as an MRP in our industry. So please look into your costing, not just the technology. Now, I'm not up to speed on digital measurement and the progress on testing for blood sugar using this, but there is a potential wearable device that is going to be constantly measuring. There are implants today that you can put in into some part of the body, and it will continuously send information about your blood sugar on a real-time basis to your iPhone. Those are becoming prevalent in America and in India. But maybe that's an overkill. But at this point in time, my recommendation would be look at rural parts of India, build your brand from rural, and then enter big cities and get your brand recognition there.
Yeah, so we have some questions around how can SMEs open innovation to solve problems or reducing costs. We also have questions around what skill sets are required to identify opportunities in the market. How do you go and find opportunities in the chaotic market? So the questions around that. Are there any very specific examples you can give, or the skills that you can talk about, how to kind of nurture that, and do I fight the issue on hand in terms of survival, or do I also look for opportunities? So these are some questions. I'm trying to combine some of them actually.
Again, I think innovation can do two things. One, it can allow consumers to use whatever they need. Let's look at a consumer's need as one of the critical things. And innovation doesn't always mean invention. So can the consumer use that product or service very easily? And particularly, how do you distribute your product and service to 1.3 billion people without spending a huge amount on marketing and brand building? Now, the real challenge is not just developing a product, but getting it to the market. Go-to-market strategy is the key there. So if you have an idea, now technology shifts, like most IT companies started by sending people to US, and they learned at the cost of, I include myself, we all learned at the cost of our customers with some trained people, then slowly shifted our strategy to start becoming experts in certain domains. So similarly, I think there are going to be ideas. Now, if you look at mass areas that are still underdeveloped, as simple as government reading the energy meters at home, water meters at home. I know of an entrepreneur who is working on an idea to do complete remote reading of these meters and creating electricity bills automatically and so forth. So those are kinds of opportunities that are available in the digital world. But I would say that any of these ideas, you must understand either the consumer need, or you must be very smart. Like, I don't know how many of you remember Sony Walkman. We had nice cassettes in the home, but who thought you need to really take a Walkman and go for a job? But Sony created that into a multi-billion-dollar market. Then that evolved into CDs and then discs and into phones today, right? So I think your ideas need validation where customers are going to adopt it, and your marketing spend is the key. And there is plenty of capital available if your idea is a breakthrough idea. And many a times entrepreneurs have come to me and say, Raju, can you give us some ideas in this market? Now, if it is my idea, it won't work. You need to understand your customer base that you are targeting and figure out how you are going to develop a product or service. Generally speaking, I really see a huge need for skilling that's going to come in the world, particularly in India. Unemployment as it goes up, I think we need vocational schools and skilling. Lots of organizations are doing, but I think there is an opportunity. There is going to be a huge opportunity in serving the elderly, and I am slowly becoming one of them, right? As we start becoming 60 plus, I think our demands are not probably met. There are social needs, including, kids not there. How do you take care of simple things at home? There is huge opportunities for young entrepreneurs to come up and identify those opportunities and build the trust of a community of 1,000 people or 10,000 people or 100,000 people soon, and build a huge opportunity there. I think there are significant opportunities, but I would say even in education, I think the shift is going to happen. Like we have become Google and digital, the learning is going to become micro learning. People will want 3-minute videos of a concept. Now, who will make those? Companies like Pearson and others who are big in that industry will come and buy if you have contents that are powerful for 2 minutes and 3-minute videos on medical or legal. How do you completely revamp the way science is taught? History is taught in India. I think all of those are opportunities ahead of us in the education field. Healthcare we talked about. So I really see that there is potentially opportunities for great ideas even today. And the good news is, in bad times, you will get, if your idea is good, a lot of capital. The money is available, and there is also a lot of talent available that if you are smart to go build your business.
Exactly. And if I'm permitted to share a story personally, we were running the company, and I was in the New York area when the 9/11 happened. And at that time, we were doing projects with the large banks and large, I mean, 2, 3 of the biggest airlines in the country. And 9/11 meant that not only we lost the business, our customers closed down. Companies like America West closed down actually. So we were wondering, how do I survive? How do we pay the next payroll, and how do we keep employees? So one of the key things that we learned was to figure out how do you keep your eyes and ears open to the ground, listen to people, observe things. So while we were discussing this, one of our employees narrated a story where the husband and wife both were working in New York City. The kids were going to school in New Jersey. And then suddenly, when this issue happened, the first thing they were trying to do is to call the school. And 1,000 parents were trying to call the school, and school was not able to handle. School had not handled an emergency like this before, and it was complete chaos. And those days we didn't have social media, WhatsApp, Twitter, and all that. Right? Even internet was very at a basic level. So and by the way, most of the connections went away, and all that thing happened. So what we did was we actually went and spoke to the school and built a set of solutions and quickly a software around the communication, which is our specialized area, to say that if there is an emergency, how do I inform 1,000 parents or 2,000 parents proactively without them having to reach? And then when we went and spent time with the school principal, they gave some ideas saying, no, we also have a problem of kids leaving the home but not reaching the school. The parents need to know because parents both work in US. So we kind of built more and more features into it. And I think we built about 15 small products like that, which bundled into one. And found that the US government was giving an aid to schools to strengthen their communication. So we even found a way to fund the schools. So we actually put the box in a car, went after school, 52 schools, and demonstrated to them, tell them that the federal funding is available for you, and got it. So every month to survive, we needed to sell to 2 schools, and we actually managed to sell to 4 schools. Okay, this is some simple conversation can actually lead to a product like this. You got to observe what issues happen in the field, and that is a good learning for us personally.
No, I think there are stories like that, in the early stages. I remember we were working with Bank of Merida. We were in a trade show, and typically in a trade show, I would have a suite and we would have our software demonstrated, and we would have a booth in one of the Javits Center, which has now become a hospital in New York or in Chicago. And our sales guys would be there and they would bring the customers for an evening cocktail and so forth. I still remember that at about 5 o'clock, a customer came, and his name was Mikko Talsi. I remember him so well, almost 25 years now. And he came in and he gave us 100 forms. These were payment forms called gyros. It was the European way of paying bills at that time. And he said, I have given these to IBM and you and others. I will come day after tomorrow and I will give you another 10 forms. And if you lift all the data accurately, we will give you $1 million software contract plus systems integration. Believe it or not, the speed at which we worked, we were able to prove it. Pattern recognition was a technology that we had. Character recognition was there. Barcode reading was there, automatic. We had to put it all together and use all the forms. There were different types of forms. So we had to come up with patterns for each one of them. And we won the contract. And many a times, what I'm trying to say is the speed at which you move is equally critical. And even in our businesses that we see, the government really needs private-public partnership, and they are not good paymasters in healthcare, but we have gotten into trouble because of the delayed payments in Medall. But many a times, those opportunities allow you to scale up like anything. And sometimes I would say scale is very important too. And so it allows you to innovate and make sure that you can provide the service at a cost that is really affordable to people.
We have a question from Edil. He says, can we create a website similar to Stack Overflow only for medical information and only for medical professionals, medical practitioners, and medical students?
Similar to, I lost that word. Similar
yeah,
to,
I'm not able to follow the well. It's called Stack Flow Overflow. See, similar to Stack Overflow.
I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with that particular software.
It probably means a portal or something like that.
Yeah. The medical industry's adoption of IT technology and generally process consulting is very low. And when I say that, I'm not talking about big chains. They are very adept, they have done it, but the opportunity lies in small nursing homes and others. But they are very skeptical to use. They are not easy adopters of technology. But I would say that if you have a patient-centric workflow that is not just automating patient registration in a computer and giving appointments and then doing, the real challenges are the time it takes, how does it give feedback to the end customer, how does it manage that patient's mood while they are sitting in the outpatient benches out there. I think if you are talking in those, I think even subsequently, how can you do the prescription? All those are doable, but I would encourage you to do a pilot in a 100-bed hospital if that's where your product is, before you validate and understand the cost parameters and the value to the customer.
If you could respond back, and if that answered you, or if there's any clarification you can ask. We have a very different kind of question from Bala Murali. And he says, we are in the food processing business, family business. And during this recession period, I need to do some basic homework. So as a owner, I want to look at the the competitor's business model? Do I go for higher quality or do I go for lower cost? I want to fine tune my strategy. So what are the inputs that you have for me in terms of using this opportunity to rethink my strategy? It's food processing
Repeat
business.
the business they are in, the family business?
Food processing business.
Food processing. I'm assuming this is, something similar to what we have seen in America, where vegetables are chopped, deep frozen, or is it producing curries and like tomato curries or soups, or is it more in the seafood? I don't know, but no, I would say the consumer behavior will shift more to processed food, but quality is very critical and supply chain management is very, very critical, primarily because it's perishable. And we don't have that many deep freezers in many of the retail outlets like we have in America. But if you can come up with ideas wherein you can do direct to home delivery through existing food vendors or vegetable vendors, and somehow get your product into them instead of just selling vegetables, they are able to buy and distribute locally. So, for example, if I had a retailer who had a small deep freezer in Neelamgarai where I live, and if that guy can supply cut okra or cut beans or cut spinach quickly, I think there is going to be a demand because people don't have the patience today or the time, but they all would love to cook, particularly after seeing the COVID-19 lockout that we have all had. I think many families have started going back to the basics to spend time together, enjoy cooking a meal. It is happening in our house. We don't have maids, so we are enjoying that. I think that is a powerful way that you will see such industries will come up. Now, I don't know the competition in that industry. I'm not qualified to specifically answer how will you go about. But in general, I would not worry too much about the competition strategy but I would say I need to get to be a cost leader. To be a cost leader, your procurement should be powerful in volume and it has to be cost effective, and your processing cost and distribution cost. These are the three you have to do very well. And if you can build a brand, you can create a premium. Not an easy market, but certainly huge demand is going to be there from the middle income groups in India.